Hey, everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarin. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Paul.
How are you?
This is a show where it's two guys talking about tech. Like we're at a bar, we're sitting there, and we're drinking, and we're just talking about tech. That's how I like to, my entire life is just sitting at a bar and talking about something. That's what's become. Every conversation, it's like a drunk conversation that I'm having. We have a lot to talk about today, Paul, but before we go into topics, I want to give a little shout out to Thurrott.com, the news source for all things Paul Thurrott. Great site, great articles there. Every day you're putting something out. You have a newsletter that goes out every single day. I recommend everybody sign up for the newsletter because that's my quick daily tips of what's happening. I just get the newsletter from Paul. I get excited. I think it's a personal email. It's not. It's a newsletter, but I'll take it. And
I reach out to you on Skype, not an email.
Yeah, I don't think we've spoken. You know what it is? If it's email, I know there's something wrong. If I get an email from Paul Thurrott and it's like, hey, okay, there's something going on.
Horribly wrong.
Something went horribly wrong.
That's true of everyone I work with, by the way.
Thurrott.com, guys. Go check it out. Great site. News source for all things Paul Thurrott and everything Paul's doing. Paul, I guess we'll go right into it today. I want to talk about Office a little bit.
Okay.
It's exciting for a lot of people. A lot of people are excited about Office because they have changed the entire, financial direction of how they generate revenue from Office. It's become a freemium service at this point, or it is becoming a freemium service. Couple stories here. One, they're going to be giving it away for free on devices under 10.2 inches. So pretty much everything that's a tablet and smaller.
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, so I find that number to be very interesting, right? 10.2 inches. Typically that's a PC type device, right? 10.2 and up. But there is a Samsung Pro tablet that I believe is 10.2. And of course, there are rumors about an iPad Pro, which could be in that size range. And if that's true, it's not so much just PC versus the competition. It's that they've established a line where we think people can comfortably sit here with a keyboard and get real work done. And maybe that would be the primary use of the device.
So that's interesting. So if Apple puts out a 12-inch tablet, like they were rumored to do, right? Like a Mac, iPad Pro, would that qualify as,
Yeah, that's the thing. Right now it's, yes. If they did, yes, it would. Yep.
Yeah, they would. I guess they would bend for that, for
I don't know where 10.2 came from exactly, but if you think about a MacBook Air 11, or the smallest Ultrabooks are 11 inches.
Yeah.
They obviously qualify as, PC class paid Office customers.
Yeah. This is interesting. So a lot of people are freaking out saying, well, this is going to kill the business. I don't think it's Office. It's not really exciting. You get the service for free anyway from Google, and they got to keep up and they got to compete, right? The bigger story here is, which kind of ties in, that a lot of Android and Android manufacturers are going to start bundling Office in. It's going to be part of, I guess, their software lineup on these phones. This is humongous, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this had been rumored for some time, and so when Microsoft and Samsung were in that patent royalty payment dispute, where I think I think Samsung owed Microsoft something to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in unpaid royalties. They settled, and they were very silent about them settling. And some of the rumors were around this notion that maybe they're going to start putting Microsoft apps on their phones. And so, of course, when they announced the Galaxy S6 and X6 Edge in Mobile World Congress last month, there was some, here it comes,
Yeah.
And not exactly. Those phones will come with a handful of Microsoft apps and some benefits around. I think it's 100 or 200 megabytes or gigabytes rather of additional OneDrive storage for 2 years, or something of that nature. And so it's a kind of a partial step forward. But Samsung and Dell and other device makers, and ODMs as well, which are the device makers that make hardware for the device makers to sell, are going to be bundling Microsoft apps in their Android installs, which is very interesting, like a wide range of them, including the Office apps. And I sort of see this as Microsoft's, or maybe one of Microsoft's kind of plan Bs for what happens if and when Windows phones fail, what happens if Windows fails on tablets, if we can never really get headway into those
Yeah.
markets, how do we compete? And, there's been a lot of talk about this stuff, but to make it as short as possible, I would just say Microsoft used to have these traditional businesses, Windows, Office, and Server, and now the world is different. And so how or if can they go forward? Can they go forward? In the case of Office, we see that strategy. It's the, size devices. For a lot of stuff is free because that's how things work in the mobile world.
Yeah.
Some things are not. On the server side, we see their online services like Office 365, and we see just Azure, Microsoft Azure, which used to be called Windows Azure. Windows, though, that's a little trickier. I mean, Windows, I think, has a bright future in PCs, and mobile is a question mark. Is it going to ever be successful on devices? And so far, no. And we'll see what happens in the Windows 10 timeframe. And so I think getting their apps on these other platforms is part of their plan B, just in case, because it's not Windows that's important. It's important that Microsoft moves forward and continues making money.
So, I mean, Android is technically, the way that you see it, it is their plan B. And you posted that on Twitter, is Android Microsoft's plan B. And it kind of looks like that, kind of looks.
And by the way, defying the law of headlines, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, absolutely. It is
because a lot of people say, when you write a question in a headline, the answer is no. But I don't always do that.
But how happy is Google with the fact that they're partners?
Yeah, so that's actually a question I have. And I wrote in the article, Google's licensing terms for full-blown Android, right? Meaning not AOSP, the base of Android, the open source base of Android, but full-blown Android requires the not just the install of certain Google apps and services, but them being the defaults, right? Like it's not enough to put Gmail on the phone. Gmail has to be the default app, or for mail. I'm not actually sure if that's a good example or if that's correct, but Chrome has to be on there. It's the default web browser. Google Search is integrated, that kind of stuff. So I don't think we know the full extent of the licensing requirements that they have. I'm not sure that it's completely public. A lot of it has certainly been publicized, but I'm wondering if, given the nature of the relationship of these two companies, if Google sees this happening and says, oh no, if you want full-blown Android, you can't do what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, because
could they do that?
Google depends on the fact that their services are being used. You're in the Google ecosystem. You're buying Android, so now you're in the Google ecosystem, and you can't really leave it. And it's the same exact mentality as Microsoft, because if you're using Gmail on your phone, there's a good chance you're going to use Gmail on your desktop, on your laptop, on your tablet, whatever it is, because that's what you're familiar with.
You sign up with a Google account and you get Gmail for free.
And that's it. And it's hard to break that. But now, and Microsoft benefits because guess what? Majority of Android users are Windows users. Statistically. I mean, if you look at it, they are.
So, by the way, you're right. You are right. And I used to say, when the iPhone first came out, one of the things I tried to pound in was this notion that the majority of iPhone users, and this may not be true today, although it probably is still true, but it certainly was true the first few years of the iPhone's existence, we're also Windows users. And Apple's antagonistic relationship to Windows and thus to Windows users, I thought was kind of hypocritical because these are shared customers. Apple's hardware in that case worked best with Apple's services, which back then kind of sucked, and didn't work well with Microsoft's online services like Exchange Active Sync, Hotmail and things like that. That's completely changed over time, and that situation is obviously a lot better. But in the beginning, Apple was very antagonistic toward Windows. Now, Microsoft doesn't have a way to get into the iOS ecosystem like they can on Android because only one company makes the platform, only one company sells the devices. On the Android side, you see something like the PC market where there are hundreds and hundreds of companies churning out these devices. And this could be a way for them to take, in other words, releasing apps is step one. So the apps are there, but people have to find them, get them, want them, that kind of thing. Putting apps on the phone is the next step.
That's the big deal, yeah.
It's sort of like, I think it was Windows 95, because of MSN, AOL complained to antitrust regulators about them bundling their own online service. This would disadvantage them. And I believe it was the initial shipping version of Windows 95, but if it wasn't, it was a subsequent version, where AOL and probably Genie and CompuServe, I don't remember the exact breakdown how it worked, but they were all there in Windows.
Yeah.
right? Real
Yeah.
Player, remember, was in Windows 98, I think, for basically the same reason. Microsoft had a monopoly, and they were basically forced to do this kind of stuff.
And I'm sure it
So
helped those companies by the fact that they were bundled in and it was there when the computer was bought and it was installed.
yeah, it's maybe notable that none of those companies are around anymore, which is, by the way, the problem going forward for Microsoft. Not that Microsoft will ever disappear; they're a huge company, but um, you know, th- this kind of thing could be problematic because the platform maker could turn on you. For example, Google could calculate very coldly that they would lose some battle if they went to court over this. But why not just tie it up in court for a few years? And in the meantime, you could yank your Android licenses from Samsung or Dell or whoever else and say, you're not getting this thing unless you get that Microsoft crap off
Yeah.
of there.
And guess what? They're gonna bend over backwards and do it.
And I got to be honest, in the United States, as dominant as Google is with Android worldwide and even in the United States, they don't have a monopoly, not in the United States. And I think they're in pretty good legal footing to do whatever they want. I mean, it's not, you don't have an antitrust issue, at least not in the US. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know if or what the fallout will be.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm actually a little surprised that we're going to start seeing this. Where you're going to start seeing Samsung phones or HTC phones that have, the Microsoft that's going to have like a Microsoft bundle of, I guess it would be Outlook, everything Office, probably Skype, right? Because is Skype now incorporated in the Office platform? It is Skype for Business.
Yeah.
So the communication method, texting method. And everything else is bundled in. It's essentially going to be a Microsoft phone if you look at it that way.
I mean, there are these three ecosystems. Microsoft. Well, there are more than three, but there's Microsoft, there's Google, there's Apple. There's also Amazon and whatever. These things all kind of work best within themselves, right? But there are places where the others get into the others, so to speak. We're disadvantaged on the Windows side because, especially on mobile, the biggest stuff from the competitors don't appear on that platform. Then it means things like iTunes. On the Apple side, it means things like everything Google does basically on Windows Phone. I mean, other than connecting your email account to it and calendar and stuff, if you want Google Search, if you want Google
it's not very good.
Plus or Google Photo integration with your phones, you don't get any of that stuff.
I'll tell you, if you want to do Google Photos on iOS, and this was the case, I mean, I want to say 6 months ago when I tried it, it wouldn't push the photos to automatically upload. It was every time I opened the Google Plus application.
That might be a limit of iOS, because I noticed that with OneDrive. I configure OneDrive photo backup on all my devices. It's one of the things I really like about Microsoft because their stuff is everywhere. But sometimes there'll be a little notification sitting there. It's like 8 or 18 or 64 or something. And you're like, what's going on? And when you open it, the photos start uploading. And that might just be a technical / political limitation that Apple imposes unknowingly or on purpose. It doesn't really matter.
See, I'm curious about this, and you tell me if you tell me. What actually, Suncast says OneDrive. Actually, he just said it before you said it. OneDrive works exactly the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I put out a tweet and I was saying, I'm really looking at the Lenovo X1 Carbon. It's a stunning lap. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful because it's time for me to get something new, and I'm tired of waiting for the laptop I want from Apple to come out.
Right.
So I was looking at it, and I was thinking it'll be really hard for me to break the Apple environment, the ecosystem, because I'm so heavily dependent on iMessage.
Oh, and iMessage
on my computer because I don't have an iPhone.
So I've been looking at, let me see if I can find this thing. Oh, I can't find it. This is not as good. I just want to be really clear about that. Yeah. But there's something called Push Bullet. I don't know if you've heard of this, that tries to connect different devices in ways that sort of resemble what Apple's doing in Mac OS X with iOS.
Okay.
Where phone calls appear on your screen and text messages appear on your screen, that kind of thing.
So everything is connected. So it's
yeah.
Okay.
It's not as seamless. I just I haven't written it up yet because frankly, it's just it's not a no-brainer, but it's something to look at.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm like, well, everybody has iOS. And then I was just going through it and I text my wife and I text my father and I do all that on the computer. But half the other people are all using Google Chat, whatever they call it now, Hangouts. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of split in the middle.
Right.
Obviously, if I go to the Windows side, I could still use Hangouts. I could still talk to people on Google. But the problem is going to be with the iOS guys. How am I going to communicate with them on a Windows computer?
I have a big problem with things that are platform specific.
Yeah.
And in this age, especially with all the device mixes out there in the world, I mean, to only be able to communicate with your iPhone buddies because they have iMessage or whatever is ridiculous. Like everyone should be able to communicate using a common set of tools that work everywhere. Microsoft, by virtue of the fact that it does not dominate mobile, is a great supplier of that kind of solution, right? Skype works everywhere. OneDrive works everywhere. Outlook suddenly works everywhere. Office everywhere. They do a good job with that stuff. But that was born out of necessity, not out of the desire to do the right thing.
Are they in Windows 10? Are they kind of playing with the idea that you're going to be able to take phone calls on there like you can on iOS?
I have never.
I'm surprised
seen
they're
anything
not
indicating that. I mean, given that Apple does that now, and you see the obvious benefit of it,
and Google's doing it too.
Google's doing it. It makes no sense to me that Windows 10 wouldn't do this, but I don't know of anything in there that does. For all of the attempts to eliminate old messaging standards or eliminate email or eliminate text messaging or whatever, these things are just around. People make phone calls sometimes still, surprising. Not on Skype, but not on Google Hangouts or whatever, but actual phone calls. People use text messaging all the time. Skype and Skype for Business can sort of handle a lot of the cross-platform communication stuff, but they require, right now it's not completely seamless. I mean, they require IP networks. There's just situations where people are on a cellular device and text messaging works. I just wish why is messaging in Windows 10 not SMS? It doesn't make sense to me. They already have cross-device sync in Windows.
Listen,
Phone.
considering they've been wanting to do this for how long? The Windows of the future. You're answering a phone call there, But I guess with Skype, the best thing, in my opinion, would be forget about. Their standard SMS and MMS, I guess, service should be Skype for Windows Phone. There's no reason to have a text messaging application.
If you sent me a text message, and because I use Windows Phone, and you would send it to my phone number, like you have my cell phone number. You type in the number and you send me a text message. That text message appears on all of my Windows phones because that's how that system works, right?
Yeah.
Why can't that app just be in Windows so that if you send me a text message, it appears on my PC if that's where I am, as well as on all the other devices. And from there, I can respond to you. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, because
let Microsoft do the hard work of traversing the networks and whatever. And I shouldn't have to think about that.
Well, wouldn't that, when it would have made sense? When they still had Messenger. If they still had Messenger, I think they would incorporate it. Now, because Skype is a totally separate platform, then I guess whatever the software, whatever the messaging services.
But even when Messenger, there's a messaging client on Windows Phone, right? It's just SMS, MMS.
But not on Windows.
Not on Windows.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got rid of it in Windows 8.1, for Skype, because Skype is the messaging client or whatever. And that's fine. It could be Skype. You could call it Skype if you want. Just like Google calls it Hangouts, Although, by the way, you probably know this. In Android 5, for some reason, they came out with a new messaging app as well. I guess for people who don't want to.
So Rev in our chat room sent me a link, and he says, there's a screenshot in this blog post on the Skype website that implies responding to SMS via Windows 10 is going to be possible.
Okay.
It seems
all
that
I can
way.
say is, to my knowledge, I've not heard of them doing this. I hope that they do. It's dumb if they don't. And maybe we'll learn more because, there are more milestones coming up, right? We keep talking about build like it's going to be this earth-shattering thing, and maybe it is. But at the end of April, Microsoft is having their big developer show. Windows 10's the focus. Maybe they announce a bunch of that stuff there. And, we enter into what used to be called like a beta 3 time frame. And there are new features that we haven't heard about yet. I mean, that's certainly possible. I hope so. They really, really need this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little thing, it's a tiny, tiny thing that
No,
most people don't
it's
even consider. But I mean, if you look at what everybody else is doing and how useful it is on iOS, I mean, it is one of the most useful things for me to be able to text between Mac and iOS.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I don't know if a lot of other people do it. I'm sure people are going to tell me they never use it.
Beyond ambivalent about iOS and Mac OS 10, but when I saw that feature demoed probably at WWDC last year, whatever it was, I was like, yep, that's awesome. It's just awesome. Although I can say from experience with Skype, just talking about Skype communications, one of the things that's very irritating in a multi-device office like I have here is, like, you called me today, Skype rings over here, it rings over here. There's an annoyance. There can be an annoyance to it. And even in my limited use of iOS, I've noticed, pop-ups on an iPad that were things that were sent to an iPhone, right? Where it's like, hey, great.
Yeah. It's an interesting transition period for them. This freemium model that they're kind of going towards, what are they anticipating from this? So, I mean, I guess to kind of go back to what I said, is it going to be, well, it's free on your phone, but now since you're getting so used to it, you're going to buy it on the computer? Is that what they're kind of trying to do with the freemium model?
I guess so.
By the way, do you hear this? Do you hear what's happening right now?
No.
There's a Mexican standoff happening between my dog and my cat.
That's a Mexican standoff.
Yeah.
That's okay. Are they growling at each other?
Yeah. I mean, they're one is just taunting the other one. The other one is giving the most pathetic, submissive meow that I've ever. Do you hear that? I mean, it's so distracting.
No, I can't hear it,
go kick him out. I'm telling the dog now to kick out the cat, like it understands me. But
I'm looking at this blog post that someone sent.
Yeah, but I mean, you've always been able to do SMS through Skype. You got to pay for it, obviously.
Well, no, but doing this, I mean, so this does actually sort of indicate that, not sort of, it just does indicate that this is coming. So that the Skype client that's depicted here is not available in Windows 10 today. And that bottom shot, I assume, is Skype for Windows Phone 10. It's impossible to tell because there's like zero branding on it. Oh, no, there it is, Skype. Yeah, so Skype. Well, it's not clear what the client is, but they're using Skype. So, okay. I mean, okay, so maybe this is coming. I hope so, because this is not a little thing. I think this is hugely important.
I think so. I think for the long run, for the ecosystem and for the integration amongst, it's an incentive almost, it's a bonus. The fact that you could do this, it helps.
This is the type of thing that when it's gone, you will miss it.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think it's.
Yeah. You know what? That's so well said. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. When it's gone, you'll definitely miss it.
Yep.
So let's talk about the freemium mentality for this, because they are going. It's more of a services type company now. They're offering a service.
I've gotten some weird commentary about the freemium thing. It's like, oh, Microsoft just invented freemium. Freemium's been around for a long time. There are companies like those game makers that advertise on TV, these stupid little mobile games, and they make millions of dollars a day on a freemium model. And yeah, but I think the thing that separates Microsoft Office from, worldbuilder.com or whatever these things are called is this was already a successful multiple billion-dollar business per quarter, and the world is changing and they're adapting to it. And there are not many examples of huge products that have made this kind of transition successfully. And so we'll see, how successful
they normally make the transition once it finally collapses. That's when they say, okay, well, this isn't working anymore. Let's figure something else out. But
Office is still a huge business. And so this is a big shift. I mean, you can look at Office 365, which is kind of the online services component of it, and say, well, they're moving everyone to a subscription model, which is very common in the business world, but not very common with consumers, at least not with software, although it's now starting to be. And that's one thing, and that's a big step too.
Yeah, and it's
but
full
literally
Office.
Giving it away. I mean, but just making this differentiate. Like in other words, you sort of like there are all these things you have to admit. Like you could say, well, we're going to give away Office on Windows because it's Windows, it's our platform. And so that's a benefit. You get it for free when you buy a Windows phone, you know? So 17 people buy a Windows phone, and that doesn't really help. And now you sort of admit, well, okay, everyone else is on Android and iOS. Now we're going to give it away over there too. And it's like, wait a minute, what? You know, that's a big step. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously you're not going to get the 100% of the features of Microsoft Office on a Windows PC or on a Mac or whatever. Of course, but why would you need it?
Why would you need it on a phone or a
yeah,
tablet?
they tailor it for the experiences you would expect to have on a phone or on a small tablet. And honestly, I think they've done a great job.
They have to do this. How do you compete with Google Docs? Yeah, fine. Listen, it's not as detailed as Excel is or if Word is, but
so
it's
they don't have to do it. I mean,
okay,
I should say they do. You're right. They do have to do it, but they don't have to have moved to this so quickly. You know, in the beginning, there's going to be some kicking and screaming. You know, we used to charge $100, $500, whatever for the software. Now you're telling me, and then we went to like a $99 a year subscription for families, very liberal licensing, a $69 version for individuals, also very liberal licensing. And now you're saying it's going to be free? You know, like how do you get to that step? You know, so freemium, I guess freemium is a proven business model. You know, we'll see how it works for Office. I mean, doing it for productivity software is kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
For example, well, okay. I mean, Adobe, I was just going to use Photoshop, but actually Adobe has free versions of Photoshop for mobile devices that are very constricted as far as functionality. But other than that, I don't think there's a lot of good examples of this kind of thing in the mobile world.
I've been trying to think of it as what have we seen that's, you know, a successful pay model that goes free on mobile?
I don't think I mean, right. I don't know that there's
unrestricted. I mean, essentially full-fledged versions of the software that goes free.
I can try to figure this out. I mean, I think there's an interesting story to be written about. I'm not going to pay for anything. What does that look like? You know?
Yeah.
And it's a story that's going to get a lot better in Windows 10 because with Windows 10 you have mobile versions of Office applications available that are, you know, not 100% full features of, you know, they're mobile apps, but they'll work on PCs. They run full screen if you want them to. They run in Windows if you want to do that. They work with all the latest document formats, and you can make presentations and spreadsheets and whatever. It's going to be very, very possible for people not to pay. But the other thing, by the way, maybe this hasn't gotten enough of this press, you know, with the story around freemium is that, you know, what's the audience for free too, right? You can say it's devices, right? It is devices of certain sizes, but ultimately what they're saying is that for individuals and very specific kinds of individuals, students, you know, families, people who are not out in the professional workforce, using small mobile devices, we're just going to give it away for free. This creates a user base. And when they go to a workplace, they're comfortable with Office, and now work is going to be paying for that because they're paying for the pro features.
That's what they're doing.
Maybe you'll use it on a big computer or something.
But, you know, like giving away Windows for free, for example, right? Giving away those updates for free, and now everybody's on. I understand why they're doing it. Obviously, they want everybody on the same version. It's easy for them to support it. You know, they don't have to deal with legacy updates and legacy bugs if everybody is transitioning to the latest and the greatest. But are we going to see, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, are we going to see more of this freemium mentality like we see with games and stuff with Windows itself where, you know, right now, give an example. You get Office 365 for $9 a month. That includes, I guess, what is it, a terabyte of OneDrive storage.
Well, technically, it's unlimited.
It's unlimited. Yeah, it's unlimited. So it's included in that. But if I go to OneDrive's website right now and I'm looking at, okay, well, I get Windows, it's free. I want to come up with a backup solution. Obviously, I'm going to stick in the ecosystem and I'm going to get OneDrive. It's, you know, for $1.99, it's 100 gigs.
I mean, they do that almost because they have to, but no one's going to buy that.
No one's going to buy it, but are we going to see more like these things where, you know, oh, well, I got Office and that's how Microsoft is making their money now because Windows was free and now I have Office on here? Or are we going to see other services?
The notion of, tiered storage is kind of coming to a close. You either get whatever the free amount is or you get everything. I think that's the future of this. It's not 100 gigs, 200 gigs, you know, it's, you know, there'll be some amount you get for free. I think today it's 15 gigs probably on
15
OneDrive.
gigs, yeah.
There are little bonuses you get for doing different things. If you use the camera backup stuff, you get, you know, additional storage, yada, yada, yada. You buy devices, you get, whatever it is. But that's going to satisfy a lot of people. But if you need more, we're not going to, it's been like this for years. You go to Google Storage, you go to Microsoft now with OneDrive, you go wherever, Dropbox, or, there's like tiers. And I don't think tiers are not the future. You're either paying or you're not paying. I think that's how it goes.
Eventually that's where it's going. But are we going to see Microsoft do more of these pay services within the operating system?
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm trying to think, what else could they charge you for? Other than backup solutions and maybe automatic backup. That'll be part of their package where they charge you a couple bucks a month. I don't think it's going to,
I hope it's, yeah, okay. I mean, actually, right, sure. I could see that, certainly. I don't think there's going to be a heavy sell-through per se, and in fact, this kind of ties into what I was just talking about, where I haven't written this or really investigated, but imagine it's not pay, it's weird. It's not direct payment, but you're agreeing to be part of the ecosystem, and the more you're part of it, the more you get. So, okay. So for example, I use Xbox. I'm going to use Xbox Music. It's free. Like, what do you get for free? Like, not a lot, actually.
Yeah.
But if you have your own music, because you ripped your own CDs, and you put that into OneDrive, you actually get additional storage on OneDrive for that music, which now benefits Xbox Music. And now you're more inclined to use both services, because now you're getting more OneDrive storage, and you're getting more from Xbox Music, which suddenly is really viable. And I'm not paying anything for Xbox Music, but I can access all my music on all my devices without doing anything. I can stream it, I can download it. It doesn't matter. It's all up in the cloud. Yeah. And so that's like one little link that makes both of those services better for you. And of course, there's more. Microsoft talked about the button on the pen that comes with Surface Pro that launches OneNote. So someone sees a commercial about the Surface Pro 3 and they're like, wow, this thing looks awesome. I want it. And they press the button and OneNote runs, and they're like, wow, a lot of those people are now going to be OneNote users. Right? Yeah. And you kind of just get people involved in the situation. I mean, on a PC, with a bigger screen, those companies are paying for Windows, and so Microsoft's getting direct revenue. On the smaller devices, where frankly, a lot of those people are going iOS, Android anyway, and Microsoft's getting $0. You might as well get people into the ecosystem where you at least do have the chance to upsell them.
See, I see the big picture with the upselling for Xbox Music and for Office, and obviously their App Store, which is it's gonna continue growing. Their Universal App Store is going to continue growing.
Yeah,
you're going to have.
It can only continue growing.
You can't get worse, right? And
yeah.
Now because they're relabeling it, I guess Windows apps, right? So what are exe files now? They're not Windows.
Well, okay. So exe files are probably still Win32 apps.
Win32 apps, yeah.
Technically, these things are AppX packages, which are, by the way, came from Windows Phone. They're the way that apps are done on Mac OS 10 and iOS, I believe, and there's a version of this for Android as well. It's essentially a zip file that includes all of the things you need to run that app, right?
Yeah.
The files aren't. It's not like shared DLLs and stuff like we used to have in Windows. So they're self-contained, and when you delete an app, you delete the app package, the whole thing goes away. There's no gunk left off in your system, and it's a kind of a cleaner way of doing things. So those things used to be called Metro apps. Apparently, Microsoft violated some kind of a trademark there, or intellectual property of some kind. They became modern apps, and the next evolution of these, the kind of in terms of desktop Windows 2.0 version, really this is more like 3 or 4.0, but the next step is in Windows 10. The Universal App Platform, with these what used to be modern apps now run across different device types more efficiently, or just run across them more than they used to, I guess is maybe the way to
So now they're Windows apps.
Now they're called Windows apps. So the app platform is called the Windows Universal Apps Platform.
Okay.
The apps themselves are called Windows apps.
And what is the App Store called? Are they going to change the name for the App Store?
It's Windows Store.
Windows Store.
So far, they haven't changed that one. Although, again, we're going to see a different front end on each device. And so I think on Windows devices, the Windows Store makes sense. It makes sense on phone. They're not going to change the name of the store on Xbox One to Windows Store. That would be stupid.
But they are going to make money from this.
Same store, though.
There's going to be money that's going to be generated. There's going to be money that's made through this.
Sure.
So that's like the big picture stuff. Now, the silly stuff could be, are we going to see Microsoft charging for emojis? Is that going to happen in Skype?
The emoji pack, the emoji plus pack?
Yeah, the emoji plus pack. Are we going to see, Yeah, it's silly and stupid, but
You know
there
what?
are, I mean, millions of people that will probably buy stupid little emojis.
Okay, so this could change, but Microsoft thinks in terms of the billion-dollar business, you know. And obviously, there are small things they can sell because they feed a big business. If you think back to, you know, Windows 8, for example, or previous versions of Windows as well, you could buy things like Media Center, right? You could upgrade to a better version of Windows. In the past, you could buy things like an MP3 pack that kind of went into Windows and added that capability, or a DVD playback pack, whatever those are called. Um, Nobody's, you know, Microsoft didn't start selling MP3 packs or DVD packs because they thought that this was a big business, right? They did it to answer a need. They did it because adding that technology to Windows directly would have been too expensive, because it would have went out on every single copy, and they would have had to pay the licensing fee on that stuff on every single copy, and they, you know, it would have been prohibitively expensive. And then this way, the people that want it can pay a little bit and they can get it. It's not a money generator, right? So yeah, they may sell emojis, but it's not because someone's like, I have an idea.
Yeah.
This is the next big business. It's just, you know, maybe it doesn't make sense. To, you know, I don't. I think yeah. So I guess they could sell this up, but don't look at that as, you know, Microsoft doesn't sell Office anymore, but at least they sell emojis.
No,
you know,
I'm saying that because, you know, their entire mentality of services and I guess the bonus stuff, right? Like, you're getting Office for free here, but you're going to pay for Office because you're going to be in the ecosystem later on. You're getting Windows for free. How did they make? I guess they. You know what? They never sold. I mean, who would go into a store and buy Windows? I mean, really, what was the percentage of Windows users that actually went?
Almost zero.
I mean, small.
Yep.
So, yeah, they're giving it away for free and people are upgrading, but how are they going to turn a profit with those people? How are they going to benefit by giving it away for free and making a free upgrade? How are they going to make money from that?
By the way, maybe, you know, you don't directly make money from that, but what you do is not lose money directly like you used to in the past. And the way you would lose money in the past was you had people on Windows XP, various versions, by the way, there were many. You had people on Windows Vista, various versions. You had people on Windows 7, various versions. Windows 8 plus, we can go on and on and on. And now there's a bug that comes out in some version, you know, in multiple versions of Windows and multiple versions of Internet Explorer. Patch Tuesday comes around and you have 157 versions of this patch you have to make.
Yeah.
Because you're supporting all this crap. And you actually have to have people on staff full time who are working just on, you know, maybe they know how to make sure this stuff works in different versions of Windows. And you got teams of people that are just doing this kind of baloney support stuff.
You're kind of saving money on that. Yeah.
You're saving money on that. And that is its own form of revenues, because you're not, right? It's not direct. You know, you can't point at something and say, look, we just made $181 million this month. But you can point and say, you know, a year ago this month we lost 180 million, and now we're not, because we don't have to support all this baloney.
I'll tell you something else to consider is that the OEMs cannot be really too thrilled with the fact that Microsoft is now giving away the operating systems for free and making it an upgrade for everybody, because I can tell you, I know a lot of people that go and buy a new computer every time there's a new version of Windows that comes out. A lot of people think that way.
Yeah. So I sort of wondered with Windows 10, how, like, what does the new PC sell through look like, right?
Yeah.
In other words, if you bought a PC today, it would work pretty great with Windows 10. So why wait? You know, like, why bother? Or if you just owned a PC, right? But, you know, as it turns out, with every Windows version, there's always this notion of we're going to support the latest hardware innovations, whatever they may be. So if you want to get USB-C going forward, you need to get a Windows 10 PC probably, or, you know, something like that. They demonstrated some very specific features around security in Windows 10. It will do optical iris or facial recognition.
And that's going to be hardware.
Thumb press instead of just swipe like we already have on Lenovo.
And that's going to depend on the hardware. I mean, it's not going to be.
That requires new hardware.
Yeah.
And so if you want that functionality, you need two things. You need a Windows 10 because it's not supported in Windows 8 and won't be. And you need a new PC because it requires specific hardware. Your webcam is not going to work. It requires a very specific kind of camera.
Yeah.
And so there's always that upsell. I mean, there's always a reason. It's not just, you know, in the past, it used to be faster processors. These days, it's more along the lines of, you know, frankly, more efficient processors. We want things on mobile devices that, you know, run fanless if possible for long hours, don't generate a lot of heat, that kind of thing. But that always happens. I mean, every version of Windows, you can point. You know, Windows 8 was touchscreens, right?
Windows 8 was and gesturing.
Okay, but I mean, touch. I mean, essentially touch. It's all touch based.
Yeah.
Windows 8 was touchy. And but every version of Windows benefits from the things that came in the past. I mean, one of the biggest features of that Surface Pro 3 I was just talking about is this pen. That technology dates back to Windows XP tablet
Oh
edition
yeah.
from 2002. And so active pens, active digitizers, touch screens, like these things all move forward. Support for the latest hardware standards, different kinds of storage, different screen display depths, and so forth. I mean, this stuff all, it goes forward. And so PCs get better and better. But if you want very specific new things, you need a new PC.
Yeah. I want to continue this discussion, Paul, but we should take a tiny little break and we should talk about our Patreon campaign, guys. We have a Patreon campaign here on the show. It's simple. Go to patreon.com/whatthetech. You can fund us anything you want. It keeps us going. We keep the show limited with ads, so you're not bombarded every 15 minutes with an ad here on the podcast. We accept anything. Whatever you want to chip in, go ahead. Patreon.com/whatthetech. And you get a bonus show. We record a bonus show after this show each and every week called What to Talk, where just Paul and I talk about whatever we feel like talking about. Patreon.com/whatthetech is a site. And another way you could help out the GFQ network is by using our Amazon link. GFQ.co/Amazon. I had to remember that. GFQ.co/Amazon is the link. You bookmark it, and whenever you buy something on Amazon, we get a tiny little portion of that sale. I think it's like 6% or whatever it is. And it goes into, fixing up the studio. Like, I need to fix this monitor. I need another monitor, but I'm not going to get old, square monitors behind me. I'm going to have to do something else. So we're trying to figure that out, and that money's going to come from Amazon. We just let it sit there, and we use it for upgrades. So I want to thank everybody that's been doing it, and if you haven't, please go ahead and do it. That was my little plug for the show, Paul. You see that? I always feel guilty doing a plug.
I cannot stand having to ask for money.
I know.
Like it.
I hate it too.
It's a problem for the books. I could probably market them more heavily than I do, but it's like I feel like I'm asking people to give me money, which I am. Of course I am, but I hate doing that.
I do
don't
too.
want to do that.
But you know what it is? I started doing it. I started the Patreon because I haven't even looked what we have in there, to be honest. I just totally sit there and let it sit there. I haven't even cashed out, so we should be getting a nice little check soon.
Okay.
People ask me, like, hey, do you do a Patreon? I'm like, no. And he goes, what are you, stupid? Do it. I want to give you some money. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Enough people asked and enough people donated, and we really haven't had...
It's a freemium model.
It's a freemium model, yeah.
When you think about it.
I haven't heard too many complaints. I mean, obviously, I've heard the complaint, like, why don't you get a real job, Andrew? I'm like, this is my real job. This is what I do. I don't want to work. I just want to talk to Paul all day. I want to continue this a little bit because these are questions that a lot of people have about the future of Windows and how it's going and what they're planning on doing. Now, there was another update to Windows 10 this week.
There was another update to Windows 10 this week. Okay. Was there?
I saw it on your website. It could have been last week.
There was a there was a new build last week. I'm having trouble remembering when things happened. I guess it was a week ago.
Yeah.
New build. And then this past week, they released some just Windows updates for the build and released that build to the slow ring, right? The people are on the slower build path. So maybe that's what you're...
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Saying, yeah.
Anything?
Yeah, so 10,041 or whatever.
Anything tremendous? Anything big on that? Anything?
No, I mean, this is not Microsoft's fault, but well, sort of is, I guess. I mean, because they took so long to deliver this build, a lot of interim builds had leaked, and so all the new stuff that's in this build we'd already seen, and so it was a little anticlimactic. It should have been, maybe more impressive than it was. It seems okay. I'm still not using it on my primary desktop for a couple of reasons. But yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for a new phone build. We've only seen one of those, and I'm waiting for. I sort of had hoped, and now I'm not sure if it's going to happen now, but I sort of had hoped they would deliver like an actual new build this week or very quickly. They seem to indicate they were trying to do that.
Well, April was their original timeline for a release, right? Initially, that was the rumor that they were looking at an April release.
I mean. Yeah, it was.
And when the rumors came out and when they were discussing that, I think both of us were like, that's really soon. But we justified it as, well, Windows 9, at that point we didn't know Windows 10. Windows 9 will probably be, it's just 8.2.
Well, and it was. And so a lot of people were like, 1 year is really aggressive, but It was 1 year of incremental upgrades. Remember with 8.1, it was like, well, what can we do in a year? You know, and then they did 8.1.1 update one, which was actually a fairly monumental release and a step toward what we now think of as or what we now call Windows 10. You know, Windows 10 is being promoted as a bigger thing. They talk about one Windows, it's running on all these devices. There's a lot of work there to make the universal app platform a little more seamless across device types and everything. And that's fine. You know, that's fine. But really, I mean, from the perspective of a PC or a tablet or a phone,
yeah,
this is just the next version. You could have called it 8.2. You know, but for marketing reasons, but also for good reasons. They want to they want to push it as something bigger.
They want to be so far away from 8, they skip the number. Did they ever? Yeah. Did they answer why they went to 10? Was that
not? I mean,
what was their answer?
Not in any acceptable way.
I know, but what was their like official reasoning to go over 9 and go to 10? That it was so big. You know, it's such a major change.
Yeah, I mean, without being completely sarcastic about it, obviously they want to create a distance between the current versions of Windows and the new ones so that especially people on Windows 7 are like, wait, we're on version 10 now? You know, it sounds like a big jump. So
yeah, it was it's interesting. You know, when we talk about these companies and you know, we talk about evolving and kind of evolving before you're kind of pushed against the wall and you become a company that, you know, kind of fades away and disappears because they weren't evolving quick enough. Facebook has been a fascinating story this week because now they're kind of transitioning into an app-based service. And
yeah, which I don't.
And they're kind of relying on this notion that the features in apps, like Messenger, for example, will be their Prime app.
Which is insane.
I know everybody has Facebook.
They're like a communications company is what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're becoming. And I know a lot of people, and I wonder if they're abandoning the mentality that they are the front page of the internet. Because essentially that's what they wanted to be over the last couple of years, where they wanted to be the front page of the internet. You go to Facebook and you get all your news, like AOL.
I actually don't think they abandoned that. I think that's still a key part of it. You know, they're going to be doing more around news and stuff like that. You know, if you use Facebook as your homepage, it's seeing what your friends are doing. You're seeing what's going on in the world. You know, that's the point. It's like, this is how I keep up to date. I think that's still a pretty viable strategy. But the app thing is interesting. You know, we were talking earlier about messaging and how it works in iOS and Mac OS 10 and hopefully how it will work in Windows, et cetera. You know, Facebook and I talked about the need to remember to reach into all those ecosystems, right? Facebook is a company that has that reach. And if they could solve this problem, they could be much like Skype is.
Yeah.
With messaging, right? You know, will people with an iPhone replace messaging or iMessage with Facebook Messenger? You know, maybe. You know, is that brand that big? Is it? I don't know.
But you know what, Paul? When Facebook went to messaging and they kind of forced you to have Messenger, almost everybody that I know was so turned off by this. Everybody has Facebook. I mean, essentially everybody has Facebook. Yeah. It's rare for me to run into someone that doesn't have Facebook. I think one of my brothers doesn't have Facebook, and I think it's the most bizarre thing in the world.
Right.
But he's more of a disconnected person. I kind of admire that he's able to say, well, I don't care if I have my cell phone. Whatever. I'm going down the block. I don't need to check updates or anything. But their messenger service has not really taken off to the extent that everybody anticipated it would, I'm sure, at the company. When everybody's using this, everybody has Facebook, so kind of makes sense. Everybody will install Facebook Messenger.
But so, you know, if you have trouble accepting Google services in a business, which you should, unless it's a new business, right? What kind of traction could Facebook as a brand have in business? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Selling emojis.
Like, you know, we want to, you know, remember those guys that made Angry Birds?
Yeah.
You know, they make a messaging app now. We're going to use that instead of Exchange or something. You know, it's like, wait, what? You know, it's as ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess how would you use Facebook for? I guess they would have like a business messenger where just people within. I would want to separate
for business. I mean, it's an oxymoron.
I guess they could sell a service to businesses where it's like their chat service, you know, internal chat service is all Facebook.
Yeah.
If you already have Facebook, you just link it up.
The app thing is interesting. You remember they broke off Messenger from the main Facebook app some time ago, a year or two ago, whatever.
And a lot of people were upset.
and a lot of people were upset. It's, it's fine. It works, whatever. I don't, I just don't, where do they go from here? What's the next Facebook app that I need to have? Like, I don't, Facebook, the app I use to keep up with what people are doing and to post my own stuff, I guess. And then Facebook Messenger is really just for one-to-one, essentially, right? Communications. Direct, like it's live communication. Maybe you could think of it that way.
Yeah. I use the two service. Like I'm more of a Twitter person. Over the last couple of years, I mean, I've gotten really involved in Twitter, and I actually like the interaction on Twitter better than Facebook. Okay. But I use the services totally different. If I go to Facebook and I'm making a post, it's going to be very different than what I'm doing on Twitter. Yeah, my Twitter feed, my Twitter posts.
That's not true of everybody, but I'm the same.
Yeah, like some of my stuff kind of converts over. Like if I'm putting something on Twitter, it automatically goes to Facebook. But if I'm posting on Facebook, it's going to be a very different post than what I post on Twitter. With that said, I did post a picture of me in a Gold's Gym, I did see
spaghetti
strap tank top and
because I think we can agree that that's universally excellent.
Anyway, I mean that's why you do it, but
yep.
Somebody just posted in our chat that LinkedIn has a service, LinkedIn Messenger for Business. It exists.
Jeez. Okay. Well,
so this is what they're going after. I guess.
Here's why that's not going to fly. Not to get off too. I think LinkedIn is whatever. I don't use LinkedIn, but here's the problem with LinkedIn. LinkedIn exists for exactly one reason, and it's not the stated reason, but it's people that want to get a new job, right? Now, technically, what it's there for is for you to find someone who's an expert in some field so you can get help with something that you need. But the truth is, when people are on LinkedIn, they're looking for a job.
Yeah.
So why would you want to bring LinkedIn to your organization? No, I mean, like, seriously, right? I mean, am I missing something? I mean, it seems like that's the point of it.
I'll give you an example of me using LinkedIn, and it's rare for me to kind of use the service, but somebody gave me somebody's name at a company that I should reach out to, or that they were trying to reach out to me, right? This company, Block Talk Radio, wanted to reach out to me. We use them for our phone calls when we do. By the way, next week we're doing the phone calls on Tuesday, guys. Sorry for the delay.
That's the name of it?
Block Talk Radio. So the service primarily is based on anybody could do a radio show. And their business model initially was if you have no idea how to do a show, you have no idea how to do any of this, you just call in and your phone runs the show. Yeah, it's a little primitive and it's a little weird to do that, but they got really successful by doing that. And they have a pay model. Now they're kind of adapting and they're kind of evolving more towards podcasters and higher quality audio. And I was told by somebody that a guy at that company wanted to contact me. And he tried to call me. He had my number and it didn't go through, and that I should contact him. I had no email information for him. I went on LinkedIn. I found him on LinkedIn. I sent him a message and I had my meeting with him. So that's great when you need to find people, but that's it's not a common thing for like the everyday person to do, Paul Thurrott working at, the Zarian company is not going to really go on LinkedIn looking to network unless, that your company has that culture in it and that's how you do business. But I'm curious do regular people use LinkedIn? How do they use it? I guess it's your online resume, really. You do it.
That's what I think it is. Microsoft has a technology that they use in Office 365 called Delve, and it does many things, but one of the things that it does is let you find people within your organization who have expertise in an area which you need help in for some reason, for work purposes, and you can contact them. And it makes sense because, you may work at a big company. You don't know everyone there, obviously. Makes sense. LinkedIn is like that, but it's for external to the company. And I don't really think that's the real primary use of it, other than the fact that oftentimes you're looking for someone because you need this help, and then you're going to hire them, And I honestly think, and again, maybe I'm missing the point, but I think most people get on LinkedIn because they're looking for a job, or they're open to a job, or they just want, they want to get out there professionally, and someone may come in and hire them away, which is something you may not want as the employer or the company.
I mean, to kind of go back to Facebook, how do you... what's funny? People are saying like, well, kids aren't using Facebook anymore. Yeah, they are. Everybody's using Facebook. It's not the cool thing right now, and it's probably because everybody's on it and they don't want people, they don't want their business known by their family and friends. But everybody's essentially on Facebook, and that's where you go to communicate if you're the everyday person. How do they continue growing beyond that?
I don't know. I mean, work, I guess expanding to work would be one way, but I mean, Facebook is so consumer. It's so.
And listen, I have it open. The tab is constantly open on my laptop. It's always open. Every now and then, I just go to Facebook and I just check, and I guess they're banking on you seeing ads, and because you're on it for so long, the average Facebook user is on there all day. I mean, it's tremendous how long people are on the website.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what they do with this, and I'm sure there's going to be more news.
I looked at the stuff they talked about at F8, and I didn't see a hugely compelling difference, or change coming down the pike from them, but.
I guess they're sticking to their, whatever they're doing. This is what we're doing right now, and we better make it work. You know what? Selling emojis. That's honestly a great business for them. Yeah, so stickers and emojis.
Connecting people is not a terrible thing to do. I mean, it's, they clearly have a good business. They're clearly very popular. Why do you have to expand beyond that? What's left? I mean, you're connecting people.
Yeah. I wonder if they had come up with like a premium model years ago, how they would be doing right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it would have hurt them or helped them.
A freemium model.
A freemium.
Yeah, if you paid, like you could contact your ex-girlfriends and no one would know.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
If you pay, you get extra stalkery. Gives you.
They would just give you access to your ex-girlfriend's account, even though
location updates, tells you where they are. She was at the Starbucks.
Yeah, the stalking, Facebook stalking.
Yeah. Listen, that's how people use my Facebook. People constantly look at my Facebook and see if I'm at press, and they just show up.
Yeah, I saw you on Facebook.
You were on press. I saw it. I'm here.
Sure.
That's what they do.
It's funny. By the way, I've actually stopped checking in many times for that kind of reason.
I no longer check in at press anymore because I had a couple of weird things happen.
It's not, and I don't mean like weird stalker people. I mean, I'm only friends with friends on Facebook, but frankly, sometimes I'm just there to be with my wife, or we go out with friends or whatever, and that's what we're doing. And I sort of tempering the constant check-in thing because, or I'll do, actually, here's me being passive aggressive. You've done the passive aggressive check-in. Have you done this?
No. What do you mean?
Where you spend 2 or 3 hours at a place, and then you check in and you leave.
Yeah.
Right. So you get the check-in. Yeah, you were there. But you just do it on the way out the door. Yeah.
You know what? I've done that. One of my close friends, Spencer, he doesn't like for people to know where he was. So I'll check in as we're leaving.
Yeah.
So I guess that is a passive aggressive check-in. That's actually great. I've never thought of it that way.
Also, I mean, the flip side too is like people are a little overly active on social media. You can see what they're doing. Like if you want to avoid somebody, you're like, oh, what are they doing today? And it's like, oh, they're doing this and that. And they're like, okay, so we're safe to do this other thing. Like we know they're occupied. Like we don't have to worry about bumping into them,
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, it's time to wrap it up. We're going to do our post show, guys, and we're going to do a Throwback Thursday from Paul's website. I saw this today, and I think we should incorporate this. We're not going to do it on Thursdays, but I think we should do a Throwback Tuesday on the show each week, and it's a piece from Paul's website, so we could talk about it. So if you're watching live, stay tuned. If you're not watching live, it's going to be exclusively on Patreon, patreon.com/whatthetechasasite. All things Paul Thurrott. Go to thurrott.com, my favorite website in the world. If you miss any portion of the show, of course, you can check it out on thurrott.com. You can subscribe to us. We're everywhere podcasts are available. I encourage you guys to subscribe. We have an SD mobile feed, we have an HD feed, and we have an audio feed, an audio only feed. So I encourage you guys to go and check us out and subscribe to us because it helps us out when it comes time to sell ads for the show. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zarin. You can follow Paul at Thurrott. Anything else coming up, Paul, that you want to kind of plug?
No. I got
perfect.
I mean, we got that big travel coming up at the end of April, beginning of May, which I'm a little freaked out at. But we're going to be doing meetups in both places, in San Francisco end of April, and then actually probably be in Petaluma, but San Francisco too. We'll do something in San Francisco. We're going up to Petaluma we'll do Windows Weekly that Friday.
Going to Petaluma, but not coming to Queens. I get it.
Yeah, sorry. Well, there'll probably be a New York. Like I told you, I had 2 recent opportunities to come to New York that didn't pan out for mostly cost reasons. And then we're going to Chicago. We're going to do a big beer event up in Chicago. But actually, this is a little goofy, and I don't want to make. I don't want to. This is. I hesitate to offer this up as a possibility, but I bought my dad's car, and my dad lives in Las Vegas, and so I needed to get the car. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, you were telling me, and you're thinking about driving
months ago.
it.
I bought this thing. It's been sitting in his garage, and so
what car is it?
It's an older Mercedes, like a 2007, 2008.
Okay.
It's just a nice car. He's he's had it for years. He's had it since it was new. I keep saying, he'd visit, and I'd be like, "Oh, you got to sell me this car when you get rid of it." And then he moved to Vegas. Now he's like, "Oh, now I want to sell the car." And I'm like, "Thanks, jerk. You were close, and now I could, So the car's on the other side of the country, and obviously I could ship it back. But the other thing I could do is drive it back, and I didn't want to do that in the middle of the winter for obvious reasons, and that worked out because obviously we had the worst winter in the history of mankind. But there's a possibility that I'll be driving this back before the middle of April. And if I do that, it would be interesting to do like a little meetup 2 or 3 times across the country,
I got a great idea, Paul.
Yeah.
Forget about you and Steph doing it.
Well, just
me and you. Me and you.
Okay, yeah.
We fund the entire thing. We do a Patreon campaign. The Paul Thurrott and Andrew Zarian road trip. Across America. And it's just us recording it. We'll live stream the whole thing. It'll be a whole entire thing. I'll put on my mask.
That's a possibility.
I think that's a great idea.
I don't want to make. Yeah, I got to figure this. I got to figure it out one way or the other. Obviously,
the trip across America. So you're gonna fly down there and then you're gonna drive up.
Yeah.
Great. That's actually. You know what? I would want to see that. I would want to see a Paul Thurrott road trip diary.
Yeah, I mean, actually, if I do it, I would probably do that kind of goofy thing where, like, I'll bring a laptop and write about it and what it's like getting mobile access in different places and.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I wouldn't take the time off. Like I'd still work every day, but
that's awesome.
I got to figure that one out. It's I put it off for too long, and
Paul and Andrew across America. I like that. See,
it'd be better in the summer if we could take the time. I'd like to take a week because I'd like to do it kind of quickly, but I also sort of recognize that I'm not going to drive 12 hours a day, and maybe I could do it a little more slowly and take time and
that'll be fun. You'll have fun doing it. All right, guys, that's it for this week. We'll see you all next week on What the Tech. Bye-bye for now.